Hey, what's up? This is Asphalt GT here. Gaming and fashion, two things that have historically not really gone together. I remember as a kid growing up, you'd get those like Triforce t-shirts or something about like, I don't need to get a life, I'm a gamer, I've got loads of lives. And the stereotype of your average gamer nerd is that they really have no interest in looking good, so any kind of gaming product is designed purely as a way of representing their hobby in the real world. Now though, the world is a very different place. Not only has it become a lot more acceptable to have an active enthusiasm and interest in fashion, especially amongst men, but gaming has grown from a niche subculture for nerds and shut-ins, to the biggest entertainment industry in the world. It stands to reason that there's at least some overlap between these two now pretty sizable circles in the Venn diagram. And I'm certainly someone that fits into that category of being interested in both fashion and gaming. You know, I like the gaming stuff, but I want to look good as well. And if you've clicked on this video, then maybe you have some interest in both of those things as well. So we're going to take a look at exactly how these kinds of things have progressed, how gaming and fashion are now coming together more than ever. Some of the good examples of that, some of the high-profile examples of that, which are maybe not so good, and just in general, what options do you have if you are interested in gaming, you want to show that, but you're also interested in looking good. Nothing legitimizes a trend like the involvement of the old-school luxury fashion houses, Louis Vuitton and Gucci. Both of those have released collections or products directly related to gaming. And they are, well, let's have a look at them. Louis Vuitton released a League of Legends collab last year which used their traditional patterns and designs but with some pretty heavy references to characters in the game, right up to charms that have kind of portraits of the characters on. Now, I'm not the biggest Louis Vuitton fan, I'm also not a League of Legends player, but this stuff for me really falls on the tackier side of the spectrum. The emphasis is, I think, really on communicating the Louis Vuitton brand. Of course, all of that branding and stuff is very, very obvious, and making very obvious references to the world of League of Legends by featuring these characters in these very overt ways. They're also using this camouflage pattern over the top of the regular Louis Vuitton stuff. Not sure if that's a direct reference to one of the characters in the game or something, but yeah, to me, not particularly tasteful. Don't really think this stuff looks very good. But the very existence of gaming-based clothing that retails at thousands of dollars and is as much a status symbol as regular Louis Vuitton really shows the cultural weight that gaming now carries, and how much it's been legitimized as a form of entertainment over the last, well, 10 years or so. Because this stuff is designed to communicate affluence, wealth, success, but also, hey, I'm interested in League of Legends. You could even say it's directly designed to subvert the stereotype of gamers being the kind of loser, degenerate, not really very successful or whatever, because these products are saying, yeah, I'm interested in games and I'm also very wealthy and successful, etc. There are a few more interesting things in there, but it definitely seems like the basis of the collection. I feel like this is almost the high fashion equivalent of t-shirt with game brand logo over the top. It's not doing too much over and above that, at least with the kind of logo brand pieces. Gucci's recent collab with esports team Fnatic is also on a similar place of the spectrum, on the not particularly tasteful side. They've got here a dive watch, which in itself is kind of like a knockoff of the Rolex Submariner, but updated with Fnatic branding and colour scheme. The product itself hasn't changed in any meaningful way, it's just got the Fnatic logo on it, and it's got orange instead of, I presume, green and red is the regular version. They also only made 100 of these units. This came out about a month ago now, and you can still buy them. So that kind of suggests to me that not that many people are interested in spending $1,300 on a Gucci Fnatic watch, which doesn't even come with a metal band. While the products are not necessarily that great in both instances, what's interesting is the existence of a gaming and high fashion, or esports team and high fashion collab at all. This proves that to some extent a market does exist for gamers that also are interested in looking good or are prepared to spend a large amount of money on on fashion. It also points to the role of esports athletes moving closer to the place of traditional athletes, being seen as aspirational figures with enviable lifestyles and spending loads of money on like looking really good. And if you look back to recent esports tournaments, back when people could do that kind of thing, you'll see as these guys enter the stage, not only do they have their esports team jersey on, but they'll be wearing some like streetwear brand tracksuit pants, they've got some Yeezys on or some Gucci Aces or whatever, stuff like that, you know, it's not just regular gaming gear, this is expensive, fashion-based stuff. Also worth noting that Fnatic have worn Gucci on numerous occasions and are something of ambassadors for the brand, and there's definitely some official support going on there. Gucci clearly considers successful gamers as appropriate ambassadors for the brand. That's something that would have been absolutely unheard of a few years ago. And to give you one more, Heron Preston was recently appointed as the creative director, executive brand advisor rather, for esports team Gen G. Now I've got to be honest, not heard of Gen G, and I'll be the first to admit that I'm not a massive fan of Heron Preston, but the very fact that an esports team is employing a known fashion designer to work with them, presumably on their merchandise and on their esports clothing, is, yeah, pretty revolutionary and signposts the way for a significant change in these two industries moving closer and closer together. Don't think that it's only luxury brands doing this stuff though, designed for the kind of niche, ultra expensive, exclusive audience. No. If you take a look at Puma, they seem to be doing more than a lot of other brands, but they've got a recent collab with Cloud9, which is, yes, another esports team. And the stuff here is not exactly aesthetically groundbreaking, but it looks like traditional sports gear, but bearing esports team logos. Since athleisure is still such a big area in mainstream fashion, this is absolutely designed to appeal to a wide variety of people who are interested in gaming, and yet it has the same look of the regular sporting equipment that you would buy from Puma. But this isn't the best part. The best part is that last year, Puma made dedicated esports shoes to be worn indoors and in arena, is what they officially said. And that goes along with various interesting claims about how that might improve your gaming performance. For many people this was perhaps a step too far, seems pretty ridiculous. I mean, I always wear my esports shoes before I start gaming, but apparently most people don't feel the same way. And we're kind of like, we're only one step away from having like esports sweat towels or something, I don't know. But these actually sold most of their sizes pretty quickly, which suggests that there is a demand for gaming clothing that is specifically designed to improve your performance in video games, or at least to be worn whilst playing video games. Puma's involvement with gaming here really shows two things. One, that the perception of gaming is changing to something that it's okay to aspire to be good at. Competitive spirit are what these sportswear brands are all about. And a couple of years ago, I think a lot of people would have felt that gaming and that genuine desire to succeed and to be the best were kind of at odds with each other in a lot of ways. But now I think it's a lot more acceptable for those two things to be considered together. And point number two is that it shows that the industry is feeling out in a lot of different ways what is acceptable and what is not acceptable in terms of gaming-based clothing. The existence of these esports shoes, you know, maybe that's kind of across the line of things being okay a little bit, at least for a lot of people, but the fact that these experiments are being made is absolutely showing that there is a greater interest than ever in fashion and gaming, or competitive gaming specifically, being considered one and the same. Okay, we've had a bunch of things that maybe don't work super well from an aesthetic perspective, and in general, even out here in 2020, I still think there are a lot more misses than hits in terms of fashion which is based on gaming, but there are still a couple of cool things that you could look at. Check out, for example, the Destiny 2 Palladium boots. Now, interesting thing about these, Palladium, a very legitimate boot brand, so you're going to get a high quality product here, but the Destiny branding has totally changed the overall presentation and the aesthetic of these boots from a kind of relatively traditional thing into something that looks a lot more futuristic and a lot more space age. I've seen a lot of interest from people in these boots that have no real interest in playing Destiny. Like, even I think that they're super cool, and I would definitely consider buying them, and I will probably never play Destiny. In this case, the product is doing a lot more than just communicating that the person wearing them plays Destiny. They actually look good in their own right. And if you really like the game, then they do a good job of communicating in a more subtle way that you're interested in that game. And if other people play Destiny 2, they will probably recognize some of the logos and the elements that are on here. An older example is the Puma and Metal Gear sneaking boot. This came out in 2015, I think. It was around when Metal Gear Solid 5 came out. And what you'll notice, there is really no visual reference to the game at all on these. The thing that makes these a game reference is that these look like the boots that Venom Snake wears in the game. And yet they've been made into not just a piece of costume, but a fully realized, legitimate product from a footwear manufacturer. We're almost getting into slightly different territory here of real-world products that are based or reference an actual specific product that exists within a game. This is kind of something that we've spoken about in a bit more detail in a previous video, like quite a few years ago now, where we talked about games like Deus Ex and Muster Brand creating coats that are based on the game that you can buy, that feature in the game, that were designed by Acronym. But this is absolutely relevant here with Hideo Kojima. He is a known fashion enthusiast. He's often spotted wearing Acronym, which of course brings me on perfectly to the Acronym Death Stranding J1. We've got one here, it's sitting here in the back, and what this does is bring branding elements from in-universe and put them onto a real-world product. You've got on here references to Timefall, to various technologies that exist within the game, but of course don't actually make any sense in the real world. But it's a million miles away from having the Call of Duty logo across the chest or something. But the real thing that links the real world and the game world, and the thing that makes this, in my eyes, a pretty interesting collab, is that it's using the model of a real world jacket, the Acronym J1, which has had many different versions over the last 10-15 years, but is updated not with the branding of the game, but to reference an element or an idea that exists in the game. The yellow pocket, of course, not literally having a baby on it, but being representative of BB that is in the game. I find that concept really interesting. And again, it's one of those things that if you haven't really played Death Stranding, you don't really know about the game, you've not seen the game assets and what the characters look like, this means absolutely nothing to you. And that subtlety, I think, is really interesting and definitely a cool way to integrate gaming into your fashion purchases. It's stuff that maybe you only know as the wearer exactly what this stuff is and exactly what it's referencing and the way it's referencing it. Death Stranding is a really interesting game to talk about in this context. You could probably make a whole video about this and Acronym's involvement in the game, and I think the outcome, which is also super interesting and more relates to this video, is that people who are interested in fashion and people who also played and enjoyed the game are pretty happy to wear Death Stranding products and merchandise. I've seen Death Stranding logo t-shirts worn in a fashion context. And that's not just because the Death Stranding logo is kind of cool and kind of dystopian looking, because at the end of the day it is just a logo t-shirt based on a game. You wouldn't do that with like a Call of Duty t-shirt, but it's because the in-game world of Death Stranding has such a strong link to fashion and techwear with all of these, you know, products and clothing that are designed for purposes and to protect against Timefall and stuff like that. And just because I think Death Stranding has an ability to communicate so much about fashion because of Hideo Kojima's interest in fashion, because of his relationship with Acronym as a brand, it's almost like wearing the Death Stranding t-shirt is almost like a bit of a subtle Acronym nod. What other cool things we got? I was shown recently a pair of Need for Speed branded Puma shoes. I don't know, why is it always Puma doing this gaming stuff? They absolutely love gaming. Anyway, they've got a Cobra buckle on them, which gives them 10 techwear points to Gryffindor immediately. And maybe that's a little bit cringy, it's a bit over the top having a buckle on there, but it's got a really fun colour scheme. I think these are quite a fun little product, and it's by far from Puma's worst shoe. And again, it doesn't have the Need for Speed logo on it. If you look at these shoes, they don't look like gamer shoes, they just look like regular shoes. What do look like gamer shoes though is these upcoming Nike Blazers, the Have a Good Game, I think they're being referred to as. And yeah, I mean, these really don't look good. They're supposed to reference the arcade scene, I think, but they just come across as looking kind of lame. Like, gaming is not a kind of edgy, subversive thing to do anymore. It's like one of the most popular hobbies. So you don't need to walk around with shoes that are like, hey, does anyone else like video games? It just comes across as a bit cringy, I think. Oh, and before we round this video out, another interesting part of this, and it kind of connects to the Heron Preston appointment, is the rise of like like gaming lifestyle clothing. So you'll see esports teams, some of the biggest ones, you know, you've got 100 Thieves, you've got Team Liquid, they are becoming more and more fashion focused, and what was just kind of their gamer merchandise that had their logos on is now evolving into something which is being presented and marketed as a streetwear brand. All this stuff has some way to go, don't get me wrong. It does feel like it's a bit second rate to actual streetwear brands, but it's clear that the designs of these products have stepped up from what they used to be 5+ years ago. We covered quite a lot of ground in this video, quite a lot of separate topics, I think. So if there's something that you feel really speaks to you, or maybe some like cool gaming merch that I may have missed, which is definitely worth looking at from a fashion perspective, then definitely stick some of your thoughts down there in the comments, because I'd be super excited to read through some of this stuff and see if, yeah, maybe there are some other cool examples of genuine gaming fashion out there that is worth experimenting with. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to give it a like, because it is super appreciated. And again, thanks for watching, and I will catch you next week with another video. Shout out to Steele McWilliams, who's already given the dyeing stuff a go. Definitely getting me inspired. I really want to try some of this stuff myself. It does look pretty cool and pretty fun to do. And thanks to everyone who commented on the haircut. It was long overdue. So yeah, it was looking pretty awful before, so pretty much anything was an improvement. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. If you want to catch some more, there's going to be links going up at the top. And if you haven't subscribed yet, then you should hit the little sidey subscribe button. And then you can do that. And then when these new cool videos come out every single week, you're going to be in there, you're going to be watching them, and we'll have a great little time together.